Hello. Welcome back to the show. It is Christine, Jewell. I'm here with Mark, Jewell.
Hello.
Hello.
Glad to be back. I made it back for another round of this series.
We made it back for part 2 of our series on unification, merging our businesses, and just growing into deeper everything together, right? The next season of life. And here's the thing that's so cool. When you grow as a couple, there's always more layers. There's always more layers and depth to intimacy, to trust, to connection, to what's possible for you guys, for us as a couple. And if you keep leaning in, it's so awesome what God begins to do in you and through you and reveal to you and prepare you guys for. And we wanted to do this series because God is doing some pretty amazing things in our life. And we also wanted to be raw and real about what it's like going through the process as a couple of deciding to merge your businesses, go 100% full transparency. We're going to get on the same page about everything. We are truly going to be partners in everything and stewards in everything together. And so there's been a lot of awesome...
Have you had any moments yet of asking yourself, why are we doing this? I know we talked about that in the last episode, but why are we doing this?
No.
You haven't questioned yourself yet? No? Not at all?
No.
Not one time?
I just have had such a peace about us merging. I have had to take a lot of breaths. Like, it feels like I've been birthing something new. And so there's been a lot of moments of feeling, because contractions come and it's like, okay, I got to train my nervous system to like be calm through this. So, but I haven't doubted, should we be doing it?
Got it.
I know why we're doing it. I'm clear on the why. And I'm clear that we are doing what we're being called to do.
What's been the hardest part for you?
That's a good question. And then we're going to dive into our 5 Ps. What's been the hardest part for me? I think it's just like, it's another layer for me in my learning to trust more, trust you, trust God, trust the process, trust the perfect order of things, and trust that God uses all things for good. It's just like God, again, has been developing and increasing my capacity to trust Him in all things and each other, to be honest. Because we think we're good. We're like, yes, of course I trust you. But like when all these things start coming up and you start questioning each other and going, well, why would you do this way? Why would you do this way? We're so used to doing things our way, right? And anyways, I know that there's been moments that I've been like, a little bit harsh, critical maybe.
Yeah, a few.
Yeah. I'm human, okay? What's been the hardest for you? And by the way, we are going to be talking about the 5 Ps, the things that we have learned in this process. And we're going to dive into those in a second. But since Mark started this, what's been the hardest for you?
I think this is a great way to tee this up, this 5 Ps, this conversation. So what's been the hardest part for me? Full transparency. I mean, the way you say this sounds so much more beautiful and eloquent than I'm going to put it. So we'll just leave it at that. I was very sloppy in some of my business practices in the past. When it comes to being in the classroom, putting on a great training, having great curriculum, creating an amazing client experience, user experience, helping people have breakthroughs, et cetera, like I am on point with that stuff. Like that is the gifting, the artistry, one of the anointings over my life is teaching.
Yeah.
Right? So all that stuff is...
You're a great teacher,
really...
a great facilitator. I would say a great facilitator.
Yeah, all that stuff is very, very dialed in. However, when you think about the back end of that, right? I mean, good artists aren't always good business managers, and so there's a lot of business practices on the backside, financially speaking, for the most part, but also just some operational things that were not dialed in, that were not stewarded well. That I was, and it's like, so I made a lot of mistakes. Okay. Things were done sloppy.
Shoved a lot of things under the rug.
And it wasn't like anything was ever done, with malicious intent or anything was ever done. And nothing's like, that bad, but it's, when it's your mess, it's your mess.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, your mess is, what you got hiding in your closet. We all got stuff. right? That you stuck away in your closet. You maybe on occasion bring it out, or maybe after a few glasses of wine it comes out, or maybe you pour it out in the journal, or you talk to God about it, or you talk to your best friend about it. But most people probably aren't actually talking to their spouses about it, really, would be my guess. I'm just sort of putting that as a blanket statement across a lot of people I know. I think a lot of people are just not having those conversations and not talking about those, not really skeletons in the closet, right? But just like stuff you've swept under the rug that you thought, well, this is my thing, I'll handle this. And I think at least especially dudes are really good at this. Like, I don't want to burden her with this. I don't want this to be her problem. I don't want to make my problems her problems. I'll just handle this. Or this is a work thing, and I'm not going to, and I'm just going to handle that work thing. I don't want to bring that home. And we have all this talk about work-life balance and separation. So
which is total BS.
Yes, and that's another podcast for
another
day.
podcast.
But anyway, we what has been the hardest part to take all that little setup has been having to fully disclose all of these things, because we have to. It's like for my ag people or people that grew up on a farm, like once or twice a year, you got to clean out the barn.
Yeah.
Right? And what's that mean? It means like you get into every nook and cranny, you get it all out there, you sweep it all out, all the dirt, all the manure, all the straw, all the leftovers, right? Sweep it out, either put it in the gutter and run it out of the barn, or you get it in the middle and you got to sweep it out. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of sweat. It's not fun. It's never fun. And but that's what's required. Yeah. So that's probably been the most challenging for me, is being really fully transparent. And the gift in this case is now I feel like I actually don't have to hide anything. There's nothing left. And that's been like,
whew, come on,
and finally,
do it again. One more time for those.
And finally feeling like, hey, like I'm not, you're not doing all this alone. And I know that you've had your things too. And then it's like, now we got all this stuff out here in the middle. Everybody knows where it is. It's all on a spreadsheet, right? And it's all on a list. And we get to attack that together. And we've been working through a lot of that, not always comfortably. And I'm sure that Christina's had a lot of moments of like, where did I find this dumbass? Like,
hey, we don't use that language on my show.
I know you don't, but that's often how I talk about myself in my mind in the back of things. So, yeah.
Okay. So the themes that I'm hearing is trust and humility. Trusting and humility, which actually I think is so good, because I would bet that that's what a lot of couples also struggle with. Is like, he's probably wondering, I want her to trust me. I don't want to put the burden on her. I don't want to give her all my stuff. I don't want her to find out that whatever, maybe you feel inadequate or incompetent in one area or whatever.
You do it from a place of protection. At least in your mind, it's from a place of protection. But often we go into those places of protection and then end up maybe not being as competent as we thought we were. We don't execute as well. The market doesn't go the right way. The deals don't go the right way or flow the right way. And so then you have to figure it out, right? And then some left long enough, sometimes these things compound.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what initially started as protection now actually puts your family at risk. Yeah.
Come on, did y'all hear it? What begins as an act of trying to protect ends up putting your family at risk. And I want to double tap on that, because
in my podcast I call that well-intended, poorly executed.
Well-intended, poorly executed. And what happens is, and sounds a little harsh, but it's like we could start off with poor behaviors can seem like they're stemming from a well-intended place, but it's still twisted. It's still not 100% in integrity. It's not God's way. It's not kingdom. It's not, and we justify things. We're like, okay, we talk ourselves into it, right? And, but then it creates this like self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we have this loop where I think, and again, it goes the other way. So I'm not just categorizing men and women, but I know that a lot of women really want to trust their men, want to, say, okay, well, if he tells me something, I know that he's good for it. That's what he means. But it starts this like dance where she's going like, can I trust him? Do I need to like follow up? Do I need to check on him? Like, right? And I would say, women, don't do that. But it's this pattern that's developed. And I do want to say this before we jump into the next part here, is that we have talked a lot about old wine versus new wine, the old self versus the new self. In the Word of God, he says every day you got to get up and you've got to put on your new self, right? You have a renewed mind, you have renewed thoughts, you have a renewed way of thinking about everything. And I'm speaking to those of you who are faith-filled believers who say, you know what, I'm a follower of Christ. Well, to be a follower of Christ, it's one thing to call yourself one, but if you actually break down what the word is follow Christ. So what Christ says, how Christ moves, what Jesus, he is the way. When you observe and you listen, and this is why he called Peter the rock. It's like Peter just heard Jesus and he just obeyed. He followed. He was feisty. He was angry. He had moody, he was not perfect, but he had such a heart of faith and he followed, his Lord, his like Jesus. And as I think about, as we come into greater and greater, like just a heart to really want to serve the Lord, to, operate by the kingdom principles that God has, opened and revealed to us more and more. There's a new way of thinking around some of these old things, like how we managed money, like how we managed debt, like how we ran business operations. So a lot of the old stuff that came up was created in the old self, by the old self, the old ways of thinking around, well, this is how the world does business. This is how people do finances. Like you do rob Peter to pay Paul, you keep shuffling money around. You keep making promises and hope that you can fulfill them. And it's so, I want to say this is such an act of obedience. It's an act of love, and it's an act of grace for both of us to give ourselves grace about how we made decisions in the past. And also as we lean in to give each other grace as we say, okay, we get to do it differently going forward. And we're really excited because God has been blessing us and blessing our business. But I just wanted to say that because it's important to remember, we're new wine now. We're doing this a new way. We got a new operating system. And that's why we say it, like we're up leveling everything, like new ways of doing everything from parenting to business to scheduling to everything that we want to be in full alignment. And so there's a process to that. So I want to talk about today. We've already done we could have just wrapped it up there. It'd be a great podcast. But
seriously, I
wrote down these 5 P's in my journal this morning as I was thinking about the process that God has really been taking us through. And the 5 P's that I wrote down, and we'll unpack them all, is that the first one is the planting of the seed, the planting of the desire to do something different, the planting of the idea that we get to have a greater marriage. We get to, we should merge this company. Like, the Holy Spirit plants this idea, plants this desire in your heart, plants this idea in your head, and you need to sit with it. So I want to we're going to break that down. The second P is the promise is presented. He presents the promise, right? So all of a sudden, when he plants a seed, you usually get some kind of evidence that like, oh, this is a good idea, right? Like somebody affirms or confirms or something shows up out of the woodwork. Maybe it's a new opportunity. Maybe it's like this right timing, right order kind of thing. So there's like where he shows you his hand. He's like, hey, this is the promise, okay? You've got the planting of the seed. He shows you the promise. Then the third P, which we don't love, is the preparation. He kind of goes, you see this? It's like telling your son or your daughter, you see this car? This is what I'm going to give this to you. But first, there's a few things we got to go through. And it's the preparation of the character and the environment and the atmosphere. That's the third P, is preparation. The fourth P is provision, which drops in when we're positioned, right? We're positioned, we've been prepared. The provision that drops in once we're finally positioned, ready to receive the thing that God has for us. And the last one is promotion. And promotion is like, congratulations. You've made it through. You're at the next level. We have a new baseline now that we get to operate from. So let's unpack these because I think these are
some great P's.
I love these P's.
There's a lot of P's here.
There's a lot of P's. Let's talk about planting of the seed real quick. We've already talked a lot about this, so we're not going to talk too much. But do you want to talk about planting of the seed, getting this crazy idea? We merge the businesses. We're going to supernaturally unify.
I was just trying to think, like, what was the actual seed? I think we joined this Fueled by Fire coaching program coming up on a year ago. Stacy and Larry Wallace lead this thing, and it's been a huge blessing in our life to be able to work with these people that have already been where we now aim to go. But at least for me, that provided the example of what they do. I mean, this is a couple that runs a business sort of similar to ours, and they go at it together. They're in age 10 years ahead of us, and operating at a little bit different level that way. But man, it was just, I don't know, for me at least, it was cool to see how in unison, like how unified they are in that. I think I talked about this on the last show. I grew up with that a little bit, that example in my household, but this is at a whole different level for me. So there was a seed. I have a
role
couple,
model seed.
Yeah, there's a couple of seeds planted there, but this was a real role model seed for me that showed me like, and I'll be honest, like I felt very much like I had been going it alone for a long time. Those of you in leadership roles will note.
You felt unsupported by me?
That it will feel very alone, right? You will, and it doesn't matter if you have great support of your wife, right? At the end of the day, like generally speaking, nobody's waking up with you with your 3 a.m. thoughts, right? And knowing, just having all of that. And there's so much going on. Finally, we've had different examples over the years of people sharing this concept, like we shared on the last show, which is one can put 1,000 to flight, 2 can put 10,000 to flight.
Yeah.
And those examples, those ideas, that's like how much more juiciness, richness could we extract
out of life?
Out of life. If we do this together, you and I have both been through relationships that would have made that very, very hard.
Very hard. Woo!
Right? To get there, and everybody's got their own way of getting to where they show up, and we showed up in our 40s coming together, and we're like, hey, if it's 40, 50 years left, in this lifetime, like let's make the most of it. Let's go build that. So anyway, there were some of the seeds, at least for me, that were planted that way.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So just seeing like other inspiration, seeds of role modeling, and same for me. But I would say for me, it's really the desire. Like the desire was just, I think we just naturally have this desire planted in us that says, I want to build something with someone that's really meaningful and impactful. And I have this like dream, I got a dream that we get to like conquer something amazing together, and we just get to be really solid in that. It just feels like so much of the world has so much evidence that doesn't work, right? And yet when I started deciding, no, like this is my desire, I'm going to honor this God-given desire, God started showing me evidence all around of other couples, Stacy and Larry being one of them, but many that were really doing things together for the kingdom, in the marketplace, in business, doing so in a way that was really profitable, really in integrity, I have to say, because a lot of the things that we saw before were out of integrity or just misaligned, like totally worldly, chasing all this external stuff, but then saying one thing and doing another. And so for me, it was really just having the desire to want to do so much more, to really come together and making the decision. Like, we're doing this. We're going to stop trying to do everything kind of together, but side by side. Like there's a lot of, and actually this, one of the couples that came to one of our events, this was like, their first step was just getting to the point where they were willing to go side by side. And that's fine. That's for a season, but you want to really link up, right? So that's the planting the seed, showing us what was possible, showing it in other people, seeing that it wasn't just rare in one couple, but I started to see it more and more and more, which is really interesting.
It's so interesting because once you train your eye or train your heart on what that looks like, then you see, there's Stacy and Larry, and then there's this other couple and another couple, and then there's other couples coming into our life that are, also aligned because you tend to, your vibe sort of attracts your tribe, right?
And your reticular activating system is turned on. So now you're looking for what you want to see more of. You're consciously creating. You're saying, God, you created us for this. So like open my eyes to see everywhere that it is, which is very similar to when I decided and I said to the Lord, like, I'm ready to have an amazing marriage, an amazing man in my life. But I had the old program, like, good men are impossible to find. They're nowhere, right? But I decided that I was that was what I wanted. I was going to honor the desire. And all of a sudden I started seeing men who were respectful and honorable and like just good men. They started showing up, not from a sexual like thing, but I just started to notice them in my atmosphere where before I was literally blind to what was walking around, you know?
Yeah.
And so
I would have walked right by you. You wouldn't even have seen me.
You would have walked right by me. All right. So number one, he plants the seed. He plants a seed of desire. He plants a seed of inspiration. He plants an idea. And this is why we got to let these ideas kind of, we got to let them germinate for a minute. We got to check them, heart check them, gut check them, spirit check them, word check them. And then you'll know when it's time. So the second thing.
Well, if they're truly God's seeds, they're going to sprout.
Yes, if they're truly God's seeds, and the
you
soil
don't
of
have a
your heart
choice.
is ready,
Let's
though. The soil of your heart's got to be ready. Because if your heart is hardened, it's going to be like falling on that rocky soil that just comes right off, right? It's like, boom, it's not going to land. He may drop an idea into your mind. He may put a desire in your heart. But if you're cynical and your heart has been hardened because maybe you were betrayed before, maybe things went sideways before, right? Like, your heart can become hardened from actually receiving the seed that the Lord wants to plant in you. So this is important. If you're still bitter about the past, if you're still resentful, if you're still harboring unforgiveness, resentment, anger, and your heart starts getting hardened or closed, or if you're in doubt, you're doubting a lot, you're wishy-washy in your faith, the seeds, it's going to feel like the wind. The seeds came, but the wind blows and off it goes, right? And it's like, oh, that was just a fleeting idea. We don't take it in and receive it. Okay, number two.
So what was the promise of this whole thing?
The promise, well, first of all, we decided, we knew from the beginning in January, we said unification leads to multiplication. We did an episode on this way back in January. And we knew, at least we knew that we were going to up-level the offers that we were going to put out in the world. We knew we were going to up-level the type of clientele we worked with. We knew we were going to up-level the delivery of what we brought to the table. Instead of doing smaller deals, and it was fine. We were both doing amazing work before, but we just knew it was going to be multi-six-figure contracts. It was going to be a different level of clientele, a different level of serving clients really holistically, not just at one level of the business, but at the executive level, the mid to high level, and then the employee level. We just knew that we were going to do something that was going to infiltrate the entire organization. And so the promise was really, we were presented early on out of the woodwork. We had a goal to have 50 companies work with us by the end of the year. We were 12 companies in, so we're like, yeah, we're tracking. If we keep doing what we're doing, we should hit 50. That was our plan. But then boom, out of nowhere, we're already, so it's January, we make the decision. By March or April, we got the call.
By the end of Q1, we were at 12.
12. Okay, end of Q1, we were at 12 companies.
And then right in I think it was the first week of April that we got this phone call.
We got a phone call out of the blue by a company, which we won't name, but that represents 38 companies. And they said, hey, we basically want you guys to be our vendor of choice for this project we have going. And this is important because that came to us. You were not chasing it. You were not prospecting. It was not on your radar. It was like an unplanned, unexpected, out of the blue, boom, here you go. And it was a multi-six-figure offer. It was a completely different level of service, higher, still the same core, but it was that elevated thing, the promise of here, do you see this? And we had already said, I want to say this, we had very recently made the declaration together that effective immediately, those of you listening, our new baseline is going to be 200 to 250K offers for this specific program. Now that was a huge jump for us. And again, it's not so much about
50.
From 50, right? 50 to 60 was both of our normal offer, which is still a great business offer, but we were 5Xing it, 3 to 5Xing it. And this was a thing that was presented to us. Okay. The promise was presented that was 6, 7 times what we were doing before. So I love this because God's math is not addition. His math is always multiplication. He works in multiples. So that was an example for me of the promise. It's like, all right, I'm presenting it to you. Get ready. This is what's possible. You guys said you wanted this. I put the seed in your heart. This, you see this? All right. And then what happened?
Then it just...
We got all excited.
Yeah, we got very excited about this, obviously. I mean, we got to... it was one of the smoothest and easiest sales processes that we've ever had. Usually it takes a little bit of time, but I mean, this came in. We had opportunity to go in and do the discovery right away. We went in, we wrote the proposal, presented that, and I'm talking within a matter of weeks. So if this started the 1st of April, this is end of April, like it was done. And then shortly, I think it was maybe 4 weeks after that, like we got the answer. So in all of 2 months, right, which is about half of a normal sales cycle for a larger deal. It went quick, and it wasn't like we had to negotiate back and forth. In fact, it was
smooth.
It was very smooth. They wanted to pay this in terms of cash up front for 2 years, right? So it allowed us to put, kind of fund the arsenal, a little bit.
Yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, here's the provision. Like right now, here it is. God's doing it right away. Like, yay, we're all excited.
Yeah.
The sales process is smooth. We get the verbal confirmation.
Yeah. And one of the things that happened in the process of doing that is it was evidence, right? Here's the promise. The promise is that you are now ready and capable and able to do deals of this size, right?
We're not ready.
Well, you're able to attract deals of this size, yes. Right? Like you are now seen in your industry as the type of entity, player, etc., who can handle these kinds of things, right? I mean, that's that was the promise, right? That was we're now being seen in that way. And we got to the point where we got the verbal agreement, everything was good to go. We got the invoice, we got to send out the statement of work, we sent out the invoice, everything was good to go by my 43rd birthday, the 5th of June.
5th of June.
I went out the door.
And then crickets. Crickets. Like nothing. It was like they fell off the face of the planet. And enter the third phase, the preparation.
The preparation.
Right? The preparation phase. So to what Mark was saying, it's like, okay, yes, we made the right decision. We're unifying. Unification leads to multiplication. Look, we made a decision effective immediately. We're working with a different level of client. We're up-leveling our team. We're up-leveling each other. We think we're all like, yeah, everything's good. We're ready to rock. Look, God showed up. And yes, it showed up. But there was like, okay, hold on a second. Let's take you guys through some testing to make sure that you're actually prepared.
Are you really ready for this?
Are you really ready to receive, to steward, and to multiply this thing I'm about to drop into your lap? So then we entered into a couple months of preparation. And I want to say that some people call this the wilderness, right? Some people call this a tunnel. Some people are in this place for years. And I really do believe the reason why we were in there, it felt like a really long time, but also went really fast. A couple months is not that long because we really learned some valuable things in this process. So I want to share, really this is the meat of today's episode, is this moment of preparation when you're waiting for the thing to lock in. It's like, it's almost done, right? Like we're like right there, but something is not locking in. And we're waiting on the Lord, and we're waiting for this deal to come, and we're waiting for everything to work out. What are some things that, because I want to say we are now in a position where everything is done, but I want to go into this preparation, this waiting period. So what came up for us during the waiting period?
Well, so all that stuff that we talked about in the first 10 minutes, if you guys go back about 18 minutes ago from right now, if you're listening to this podcast.
All the whack-a-mole started coming out of the closet. Boop, boop.
Right? So we knew that this, we had the anticipation that this provision was coming, right? And it would require us hiring a person. And so we went about finding that person and actually bringing them on the team. Because we were making our preparation to be able to sufficiently deliver at a high level for this client.
So we hired somebody new.
We bring that person. So there's, risk associated with that. And then in the meantime, like just a multitude of other things sort of dried up or just seemed to take longer. There was also, there was also provision in here too. So this wasn't like we got left high and dry, but there were some other things that just like.
Okay, so we go out, we hire somebody to help fulfill this thing. So now We're committed to this.
And then so we did all that. We're ready to rock, but then just everything else got exposed.
Yeah.
Right? There was just like it's hard to describe, and I don't think we need to go into all the detail.
No, we don't need to go into
But it was just sort of like you ever see those videos, like those memes where it's like, here's me in the promise, right? But then
here's how I see myself, but here's how I actually
here's how I see myself getting to the promise, but here's God's version of how we're going to get to the promise. He's like, here, how about we just go and like root up everything that's in the field and find out where you got everything hidden and force you into a situation where you have to talk about it because that sounds like fun to him, or whatever his justification is for that. No, God doesn't do anything halfway.
No,
right?
He doesn't do anything halfway.
I've dabbled in lots of other different arenas and personal development and spiritual growth, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing has been as complete as what God does, or the way Jesus leads us to become who we get to become in order to be fully, in our case, fully unified on this journey, but to become whoever you get to become. He doesn't want you halfway there. He doesn't want you halfway in. He needs you all in. And so when you agree to go all in, then really amazing things happen. Like you will get leveled up. And I'm going to be real honest. I have been viscerally uncomfortable now for about 90 days. Almost every day. Like every time we get on a coaching call, I know that something's going to come up. And it's just like, and I'm not there yet, or haven't been there yet, where it's like, even at dinner last night, like more things are coming up. We're celebrating a final win on this thing, and it's still, the dinner ends with like more uncomfortable stuff, right? Things that you have to improve. And it's like, I sat up half the night thinking about it, right? And it's like,
you're not encouraging people right now.
I know. That's because you should approach this with extreme caution.
Oh my gosh.
You should. Why? Because when you go down this road,
I want to encourage people.
I know, and this will end with encouragement. Okay. And I want to know, like, people just need to be aware, like, as you go into this, like, God just doesn't do it half.
I think what I'm hearing is like, you've got to commit to the process. You like choose your heart, of staying in that place of avoidance, staying in that place of where you were was hard, but going through this, it's like, it's a fire of refinement.
It is a fire of refinement. You think it's going to be a fairy tale, and it's a fire.
Did you all hear that? If you're signing up for a fairy tale, you might want to pick up a different book. But it's a fire, but it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful fire, and it's a fire that doesn't burn you. It's a fire that refines, it purifies. The Holy Spirit is the fire that refines everything in us that is not pure, not in integrity, not aligned, not a match to the promise that God has, and He purifies all of that stuff. Sometimes it's character traits, sometimes it's behavioral stuff, sometimes it's processes, sometimes it's systems, sometimes it's conversations. It's like, I want to purify everything so that when you get it, it is pure, it is right, it is whole, it's clean, it is good. And so it's a fire that is uncomfortable, but it is a fire that is done with, it is very loving, and it's not one that destroys you. It's not the fire that burns you and leaves you.
Of course not.
Leaves you. It's a beautiful fire.
100%. The reason I share, just like how I feel, or where, like where I've been at with that, is because I believe that a lot of what gets us into trouble, I know it's gotten me into trouble in the past, or gotten me to a place where there were things to clean up, is we're sort of sold on this lie that comfort was the goal, right?
Comfort and peace are not the same thing.
To be 100%, right? But it's your pursuit of comfort, right? Your acquisition of things, your acquisition of all the overhead that you have in your business, the unnecessary things. It's the reason you avoid is because now maybe you feel like it's not comfortable to address that, or you should probably have cut back some staff on your team. There was a time, I had the opportunity probably in 2018 or 19 to correct over hiring, but I didn't. So then it got really hard when the economy shut down, or at least in our world, the economy kind of shut down. So we have this, we're sold on this idea that comfort is the goal. And so when you go through this preparation, and the seed's been planted, you got that promise out there in front of you, life is going to be better or different. That means we don't get to keep repeating the same patterns. And so He has to change our heart. And that's why we get to go through this sometimes less than comfortable refining fire, right? So that we don't keep fueling the old behaviors. Yeah.
And I love that, because there's so much out there, so many books on just like behavior modification, just change your habits. But if you're always addressing behavior modifications, you're going to need so many rules, so many like guardrails all the time, because you're going to have to be really legalistic with yourself, or you're going to have to like micromanage and micromanage others. And so behavior, when you change the heart of someone, you change the way that they think, you change their heart, the things that drive them. Behavior modification usually takes care of itself. And so as God started changing our heart for each other and for what we were called to do together and for the people that we wanted to serve and the impact that we wanted to make and the way we wanted to show up as stewards of this business, he also revealed to us, ooh, this is all this stuff. And so, I just want to give the practical, tactical things. It's like, okay, hiring, over hiring, having people on staff that either are misaligned, out of integrity, or just you're too fat. Like you need to get rid of these people, or it's not time yet. Sometimes we talk to people and it's like, look, you need a controller, you need an operator, you need a person, like you're at that stage. Sometimes we can just be like, I don't want to do that piece, so I'll just hand it off to someone else. But, so you got to have discernment. Having the wrong people on the bus. The systems that used to work, back when you first started the business. And again, we see this at every level of business, whether we're dealing with a company that's doing a couple $1 million a year or $60 to $100 million a year, as you evolve, as you grow, as a company, as a people, your systems need to grow with you, right? And so we were running some outdated systems for logistical management, for events, and things were starting to fall through the cracks. And now we're just getting irritated. And there's like this holy frustration in our team of like, so-and-so forgot this. Well, who's in charge of that? And we realized, man, we need to like redefine the roles for everybody. We need to redefine our processes, our SOPs. We need to redefine project owners, what that looks like. We need to like talk to our team and really mentor them on the psychology of growth, okay, and of evolution, because people are risk averse, they're change averse sometimes, and we're in a transformational company, so people need to know, like, we just live in the zone of discomfort, okay? Like, we just live in the great unknown. We have plans and we have a vision, but you got to be willing to shift and move and adapt when we need to. So we needed to up-level our communication with our team, with each other, our systems, and also our financial structures, right? So because we're committed to having a kingdom model for our business, which means that in the king's kingdom, that's the king's dominion, that means the king owns everything. Right? So that means everything, it's God's business, it's God's people, it's God's money, and we want to make sure that we're tithing, that we're funneling money, we're distributing money in the right places, in the right percentages. We're paying people handsomely and fairly and holding them to a high level of accountability. And we're just really like moving the money in a way that we're being led to do it. And so that required changing those systems. And so I think that there's a lot of people that freak out because they're like, I don't want to have this hard conversation. And oh my gosh, I have to like rehaul my systems. And I don't want to have this conversation about money because we have awkwardness around money, or I should know more, right? We beat ourselves up like how I should know this. And I just want to say this last thing personally about this season of preparation. There was, for myself, I got pulled into like kind of this role of CFO, COO, right? In a way. And I'm like, I'm a coach, I teach. I'm like, I get out there. I don't sit here and look at spreadsheets. Like that is not my jam normally, right? That I would have said that is not my gift, okay? My gifting is my charisma, my energy, my speaking abilities, but it is a skill I needed to cultivate. Those are skills that I needed to cultivate if I wanted to be a manager and a steward of what God wanted to give us at the next level. So if you're sitting here and you're holding on to an excuse of, well, that's not my gift, there are gifting and then there's skill development. And some of us, we need to do both. And so you might be in a season of capacity building and it's like, okay, I can operate in my gifts, but also is there something that I need to cultivate, to develop? And I want to say that when I started praying, I started saying, Lord, I'm going to need some kind of like financially strategic brain that I haven't had before, that's able to come up with these formulas and numbers and systems the way you see them, because my brain doesn't see them that way. I started getting all kinds of downloads, right? And all of a sudden I'm creating all these formulas and spreadsheets and processes that I'm like,
you're like a Fortune 500 CFO over here now.
I'm like, where's all this coming from? Like, I've never looked at it this way before. And I do believe it's because I'm getting this, divine impartation.
There's a little provision in that. It's not financial provision either, but it's going to the next P.
Yeah, it's going to the next P. So the next P is provision, which is what we're talking about. So that would be a perfect example of it. He's like providing me with the clarity, the mindset, the focus, the knowing. The gift of knowledge is like a knowing that all of a sudden you have that you didn't know before. I'm like, I didn't know this before. Now all of a sudden I do. Like, where did that come from? And I cannot tell you the amount of time that's happened over the last 5 years. Whether it was healing modalities for trauma, whether it was walking people through different experiences or exercises that all of a sudden just I got a vision of. What kind of provision? I mean, obviously there's financial provision, but let's talk about the provision. Once we start being positioned and we're like getting, okay, now we're prepared. Provision started to drop in. So what are some provisions that started to come our way? We've talked about some.
Well, I want to be very clear. This wasn't all black and white. Like you move from one phase to the next phase to the next phase, right? And I'm even noticing like it's out of order, right? It looks out of order because it's God's way, not our way. But it's, first you plant the seed and then later on you prepare. Like you're supposed to prepare the ground, right? And then plant the seeds.
Yeah, but that's not how it works.
But that's just not how he goes. Like that's not his way. So his ways are higher than our ways. Just get used to it. There are the analogy, the metaphor that I want to, I guess, put in here is it a metaphor? Yeah, I guess kind of a metaphor. As I was hiking the Appalachian Trail with Everett, right? First of all, we go into this taking way more than we needed. Okay. So
for those of you who did not know this, Mark did this initiation with our 8-year-old son that he was hiking the Appalachian Trail, just the two of them backpacking. And they're going to do it every year for the next 10 years till Everett turns 18. So they overpack.
So we take in probably 20 pounds more than we need, right? Going into this thing, because we always go into these situations thinking that we need so much more, all these extra things. And what did that do? Well, that damaged my body to the point where I almost couldn't walk by the third day. So, we got to get lighter. But the other, like, once you get into it, what you find out is like all you really need on this trail is food and water. I mean, yes, you want to have something to sleep on and a change of clothes, but I had like 4 changes of clothes, and Everett had brought like 6 t-shirts,
One for every day of the week.
One for every day for the hike, and the reality is we ended up wearing pretty much the same clothes the entire time. Like once, maybe one changeover, but we were
Y'all must have been stinky. I'm just saying.
But that's part of the you're out there doing man stuff in the woods. You're not supposed to smell good. That's part of the program. But the provision came along the way, because every time we needed food, we found food. Every time we needed water, we found water. And there was such a lesson in there for me, because we often get so caught up and hyped up about, are we going to be provided for? Are we going to be provided for? And what does Everett start to say all along this trail? The thing that you've taught him to say. Everything I need is always provided. Everything I need is always provided. Everything I need is always provided.
By the way, that's a ism that you drop these seeds into your children's heads, into their minds, and then they just repeat them. And that's one of the things we say. Everything we need is always provided in perfect timing and perfect order. Yep.
And so along the way, as we've gone on this journey that we've been talking about over the course of this podcast, we had an unexpected deal also came out of nowhere shortly after, things kind of paused on the large deal that we were talking about. That also was a significant
which was the same size as the original one that came, that was like, right? Yeah, pretty much the same
dollar
size.
For dollar, almost exactly the same size, and not cash up front, not a 2-year deal necessarily or anything like that, but spaced out over time, where it's provided steady revenue, it continues to provide steady revenue, and that project is really blessed and going very, very well, and the client really loves the work that they're getting to receive. We've had a few other things.
But again, I want to say, like, out of the blue, we were not expecting it. You were not pursuing it. It wasn't on the radar. We were diligent. We were faithfully continuing on. We said, we're not going to get discouraged. We realized we had put too much emotional weight and faith in that first thing. And we're like, we're not going to do that. We know that if God gave us that vision, it's going to come another way. I want to say that's an important piece, because there's a lot of people we talk to that get really discouraged, and it's easy to get discouraged, right? But we talked about it. We prayed about it in Italy. We said, okay, we're going to just keep moving on as if it's done. And whether it's done through them or done through someone else, we know that he's faithful, so God doesn't lie, so let's carry on. Well, then all of a sudden this other opportunity shows up that is pretty much just like the first one.
Yeah, almost fully replaced it. And then we also had so much work that we've done in the other podcast that's leading to more opportunities and more leads. And so by the middle of August, when John and I sat down and went through everything that we have, we realized,
there was an overflow
of
over
work. 70 companies in our pipeline that we're now sifting through, setting discovery meetings with, writing proposals for. And really, it's just the law of numbers, the law of averages that we if we just trust in that, and we would just going to, when you have an overflow in, you can actually start to pick through who you want to do business with.
Okay, I just keep pausing because I think it's so it's still mind blowing. By August, there was such an overflow of opportunity. There was 70 companies, 70, not including the 38 that we were so excited about potentially have us fulfill our goal of 50.
So that's actually now over 100.
Now that's 108, and we're that our potential, and now we're putting in proposal after proposal that is these multi six-figure up-leveled offers that we have created, these solutions for clients and companies, leaders in their organizations to really thrive in every area. We're so excited about it. People are excited about it. It's so in alignment. There's so much evidence starting to drop in, so many opportunities. And it's just yes, it is good. The provision is here for the vision that we had way back when.
And part of the promise, I don't think we mentioned this, but the promise for us was freedom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, and I'm not just talking financial freedom, like people who get to go screw off and live on an island or something like that for the rest of their life. That sounds amazing. If that's you, I'm not here to dog on that. Good.
Go do it if that's your calling.
Go get it, right? Yeah, but for us, it was this capability to be free from any debt, have everything cleaned up from the past, right? Oh man, nothing except other than to love them, like it says in the Bible, and really get to that level. And we're not there today. Full disclosure, we're working.
We're very close.
We're working toward that, and we're within. I mean, literally within a year of that being a real, genuine possibility.
Yeah. So,
but it wouldn't had we not gone through all of this.
We would not be in the process. So
repeating like we did for the last several years since we've been together.
Yeah. And we talk a lot. I mean, the whole point of this show, Breaking Chains, if you're listening to here, I don't know if Mark, you're going to post this on Intentional Ag Leader podcast, but is breaking chains, breaking free from the things that kept you hostage and bondage in the past, whether it was people pleasing, whether it was always, being terrified to say no to people so you were just overextended financially, overstaffed, whatever it was, breaking chains from all of the things that are keeping you stuck from actually moving forward light in the promises that God has for you. Mm-hmm. In the book, Drop the Armor, the main theme of my book is for where you are going, you need to pack light. You need to take only what's essential and let God provide the rest. And this is literally again and again and again the journey that he has taken us through in every single area of our life. We did it relationally first. We're, in parenting, I went through that with parenting. We went through it with our health, with our bodies. We going through it financially.
Mm-hmm.
He does not leave one area of your life untouched. And so as we talk about this provision and we come down to the last P, not only did that initial deal close, right? This week we finally got this signed agreement that came through, but there was another one that came through in the meantime in the season of waiting, which was a match equal to, right, or greater. Now we have even more than we could ask for or imagine.
Both of those deals combined are more revenue than we did all of last year.
Yes. Did you guys hear that? Both of those combined are more revenue than we did last year. And I want to say that this is a line right out of Ephesians. Ephesians 3:20. To him who is able to do super abundantly more than all we dare ask or think, infinitely beyond our greatest prayers, hopes, or dreams. That's from the Amplified Version. According to his power that is at work in us. Do you hear that? We have our visions, we have our plans, we have our, we would have thought oh my gosh, this one deal, that's great. That's already more than enough. We couldn't even begin to wrap our head around what God was about to do. what was about to come into our atmosphere. And this is very hard if you're just really stuck in the earthly way of looking at things and you're like, all you can see is all you can see at the superficial level. But when you really commit your plans to the Lord, he will establish them. And I want to say this again. This is straight from Matthew, the cure for anxiety. Therefore, I tell you, stop being worried or anxious, perpetually uneasy and distracted about your life, what you will eat, what you will wear, right? What you will drink, nor about your body. Is life not more than food and your body more than clothing? Right? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet their heavenly Father keeps feeding them. Are you not worth much more than them? Who by worrying can add even 1 hour to the length of his life? And then later, right, in verse 32, it is the Gentiles, meaning it is the worldly people, the earthly people, those that are fixated on the superficial things, that chase these things, that stress about these things. But your heavenly Father knows that you need them. So first and most importantly, seek first the kingdom, the things that matter to God, the heart of the matter, right? Seek first the matters of the kingdom, and everything else will be added unto you. And I'm going to flip to Ephesians. Super abundantly more than you could ever ask for, dream, or imagine. And it really comes by choosing. You know, he gave us the seed. He planted the seed. We're going to honor that. We're going to say yes to that. When he gives us the promise and he presents something to us, we're going to recognize it and say, thank you, God. And if he puts us in a season of waiting, can we continue to move forward and not say, okay, well, we must have been totally wrong, and then start entertaining doubt and fear and confusion and run back to the old thing. We did not run back to the old thing.
It's true.
And I want to celebrate us for that. Not that I'm glorifying us, but we did not run back. We did not make decisions out of fear. We did not take on business debt. We made a line in the sand because we are committed that we will be on a total cash system. We're going to owe no man anything. We want to be fully free, financially free, mentally free, time free, location free, and really operate as generous givers, you know, and be just vehicles, right, to live from overflow in our life and others. So the last P, and then I know we got to hop.
You make a really good point there, though. We didn't actually. We took on zero additional.
We took on zero additional debt,
even when it was thin, even through the harder times, whatever. Where it's like, and by the way, I have.
And there was a lot of people calling every day.
I get about 20 calls a day. Just lenders, high interest lenders, payday lenders, other kinds of lenders, SBA loan people. Hey, we'll get you an SBA loan at next to nothing %, you know, or whatever it is today. You know, I'm just like,
it's tempting.
We'd have the money wired to your account by the end of the day. You know, you get all these things. When if you own a business, then you know what I'm talking about. You get these things a lot, and so these phone. Every week I'll have 90 voicemails at the end of the week that I have to go delete that are just people calling.
How do you block that?
I think I'm just going to get a new phone number.
But I want to say, like, the temptation is real when you're in the grind and you're in the squeeze and you're like, man, we've got to pay people, or we don't know, you know, we hosted 9 events in the last 45 days.
We had to find a way to cash flow.
We have to cash flow everything. And it was so crazy because, man, there were times where we're like, okay, like, I don't know how we're going to pull this event off. And boom, everything we needed, we always had just in the moment. I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, like, or when is this going to be over? But it was really also a testing of, are you going to go back and just pull more, you know, more debt out for the business? Or are you really going to operate on this new system that you say? And we did. And so now what's coming in is more than enough to pay off previous debts from previous decisions that were made in the previous psychology, in the previous wineskin, in the previous wine, and also to operate and carry out everything that, you know, we're committed to going forward. And that's really the promotion. That's the last P, is when you receive the provision and you are now operating on a new baseline. You have a new floor. You have been established, right? That's the establishing. It's not just like, congratulations, you got the promotion, you've got the title. It's like you're promoted. There's a whole new level, a new floor that you're operating from.
So true. So true.
Anything else you want to say about promotion?
In our work in our Thriving Leader program, we talk about standards and stewardship. It's one of the modules that we teach. We added this in the last year. I think in part because of the work that we've been going through here. but a lot of times we say that we have standards, like we give it lip service.
Yeah.
Right?
We say, but we don't hold them up.
But we don't actually hold ourselves accountable to them in many ways, shapes and forms. But once you get promoted, like now that you're at that operating at that next level, you have to hold people to a higher standard, and therefore so do you. You're going to be held to a higher standard, and that has been true. So we just established standards. Standards like we do this. We're on a cash flow system. Standards like you do 10% tithe off the top of the business every month. And some people say, "Oh, our business can't do that. We don't have the margins." I understand. I totally get it. Everybody's got different margin structures. Maybe you're more product focused or whatever. Maybe you're in a low margin business. Okay, I get it. Ask God to show you how. Right?
Yeah.
And just
I would
be
challenge
willing,
that.
be open to going on the journey to just lean into, okay, I get that that's not how you're set up today, but maybe, hey, if this is where you want me to go, if this is what's possible, then show me how. I'll just leave it at that. But promotion puts you at a new level of standard, a new floor that you're operating from. There's a new, like you've gone from the first floor to the second floor to the third floor to the 30th floor and beyond, right?
Yeah.
So
Good.
that's what happens. The promise, he makes the promise, and then he always keeps the promise.
He is faithful.
And like he doesn't ever.
He is a gentleman.
He doesn't always. He doesn't ever not keep the promise. So when you realize that you're in the promise, now you know you've been promoted. And here you are, and so you get to operate from that level, and you get all the gifting, also all the responsibility.
So good. So good. When you're living in the promise, you know you've been promoted. I want to end just with these two things. Promotion, once you get it, is for purpose and impact. Promotion is for kingdom impact. So as God gives us this position, as he moves us closer together, as we're living out the promise, we're abundantly blessed. You know, Proverbs 10:22 says, the blessings of the Lord brings true riches, and he adds no sorrow to it. It is a peaceful profitability. There is abundant blessings for you, but it's again so that the blessing flows through us and outpours into others, right? People get to live from overflow. So the promotion that is super abundantly more than you could ever dream or imagine, the blessing, you know, it's for kingdom purpose, kingdom impact. That means bringing more life to this world, bringing more people into a place of freedom, spiritual freedom, emotional freedom, and just more life. So I'm going to end with this, and then we're going to go. I know you have a call, so I got to let you go. Isaiah 55. I think this is so important. Isaiah 55:8. My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways. So, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. For as the rain and the snow come from heaven and do not return there without watering the earth, right, making it bear and sprout and providing seeds to the sower and bread to the eater, so will my word be which goes out of my mouth. It will not return to me void, without accomplishing what I desire and without succeeding in the manner for which I sent it. That just sums it all up.
Amen.
If he puts a promise out there, he will fulfill it. He does not do lip service. So good. You guys, thank you for being here with us. If you enjoyed the show, I think this was a powerful episode. Share it with somebody who's going through this. If you're a couple, you're kingdom-minded leaders, and you are in a season where you want greater intimacy, you want greater trust, connection, you want to build something amazing with your spouse, I really encourage you to book a strategy call, a discovery call with us using the link below, because I believe God is raising up men and women who are going to rise together as powerful partners and co-creators to create greater kingdom impact and legacy together. So if you want to learn more about that, our VIP coaching container is the right place for you. Click on the link. Until next time, here's to loving fiercely, leading courageously. Bye for now.